I'm going to do another one of these little updates because it's fun. We're already partway through February, so it's not exactly going to be a January update only. It's also going to include a lot of February because I haven't stopped crafting. Um, yeah, so we're going to start with finished objects. So I finished these socks. They're actually still damp because I just washed them. But the thing is that I finished these pretty early in January, and I've been wearing them constantly ever since, and I love them. These have already shown up a couple times, so I don't have much more to say about them, other than highly successful. I love where the colors wound up, and I love how each of them has the exact same color in the exact same place. That's so fun. Not bad for socks that I made out of scrap yarn that I had left over. Okay, so the other thing that I finished, this next thing, I didn't work on it that much in January, but at the start of February, I decided it's time to just finish it. And it's the cardigan. So it's the cardigan that I made for my toddler. It has chickadees on the back, which has significance, and it is extremely big on him. But the great thing about kids is that they'll grow into it. And yeah, so I do need to add one more button because I didn't have enough buttons. I only had three, so I'm still on the lookout for one more. So we'll see if that pops up, maybe in a thrift store as I visit. So, oh, this one I definitely want to talk about the time that it took. So in January, I only worked on it for 4 hours. In February, however, I worked on it for 7.5 hours. So this is a self-drafted knitting machine pattern. So it involved a lot of math. And at the start of February, I had most of the pieces knitted, but I still had a decision to make about the length of the sleeves. So I quickly made that decision. I knit up both sleeves on the knitting machine, and then the rest of that time, probably 4 or 5 hours, was finishing. That was seaming everything, it was stitching down the button band, it was Kitchenering this collar down all the way around there. So all of the hand finishing was, I don't know, tedious, but the kind of tedious that I enjoy, especially at the end of like a knitting machine project where the end is in sight the entire time. So you're excited the entire time that you're doing the finishing. Okay, so last time I talked about how I wanted to make this hat a lining, and I did. So this is another one of those projects that I intended to do during January. I didn't really do in January, but I managed to just sort of knock out in the first little bit of February that I'm going over. So yeah, so the yarn that I used is some leftovers that I had from a sweater that I made a while ago, and I just buzzed up the rectangular section on the knitting machine, decreased by hand, seamed up the side. I think you can see the seam. Yeah, seamed up the side, and then kind of kitchenered it down into the middle of the hat. I had thought about adding elastic to the bottom part, but when I was trying it on, after I'd gotten when I was trying it on, at the point when I would have added the elastic, it was already elastic enough. So it's extremely thick now and very warm. So, yes, I've been wearing this hat a lot. Okay, so those were the three things that I finished. Most of the finishing getting done in February, which is funny. So, yeah, now I'm moving on to the works in progress. So, the largest work in progress. I'm trying to find the yarn out of my bag so I don't unravel it too much. It's fine. I'm not going to worry about that. So the next thing that I have in progress is the D&D scarf. So this is a large double knit project. It's the pattern is called. I actually wrote it down this time, so I know what it's called. It's called the Heroes of Yarnia, and it's from the 2017 pattern. And basically, what it is that it's a 70-page text adventure, and every so often it tells you to knit a chart. So I've been doing that. I've been knitting all these charts. It's been a lot of fun. It requires a lot of focus. It's one of those patterns that like you can't mess up. That's my main strategy on this one. Since it's so much effort to have to go back and fix anything that you mess up, just don't mess up. But that is to say that I'm pretty far in. So according to the pattern, I'm 75% of the way in. And I measured this. I measured this beast, and it's 56 inches long. So I emailed my friend that I'm knitting this for, and I asked, well, first I did the math and I projected forward that at the current rate, at the end, it's probably going to be 76 inches long, which might be a little bit long for a scarf. I asked him if that length was okay, and I guess I'll hear back from him. I figure that 76 inches is going to be okay. It's going to be a nice, generous scarf. But I'm really excited. So I just want to go over the large motifs because they're so much fun. Large motif that I finished most recently, these two dragons. Got a couple sea monsters. I've got this large fox. So turning, since all of the charts are inverted when you get halfway through the scarf, I've got two owls. I've got a large dragon. I've got two eagles. And I think this is the place where I left off last time. So I got to these two dragons in December, and the rest of this was in January and February. So really exciting. Did I mention what kind of yarn? This is made out of Hobie Dream color and Friend sock wool for the white contrast. And yeah, really, really fun to work on. It's taking so much time though. So it's one of those projects that, like, if you give it to a friend, if they ask like, oh, how long did it take? You just have to tell them, don't worry about it. So when I was working on this, I worked on it for 43 hours and 50 minutes in January and then 6 hours so far in February. So all told, the cumulative time that I've worked on the scarf, it's about 75 hours. So 75% of the way through 75 hours, it's going to take 100 hours to knit the scarf. And it's been fun. And it probably will continue for the next 25 hours. Because I've got some big motifs coming up that are going to be exciting. Okay, so yes. Okay, so the next thing that I'm doing is, last time I verbalized that I wanted to do a ranunculus as a rite of passage, and the time has come. So I've been working on the ranunculus. I forget if I'd even started this in January, but I don't think I had. I think I cast this on in January, and then I worked on it in January for about 13 hours. So here I am. So I'm through the neck portion, I'm through the raglan. So my circular knitting needle is too small for me to try it on. So I put it on scrap yarn so that I could block it and then try it on to wear it. And when I was working on this, I was having so much fun that I thought that I would just go ahead and knit the entire thing by hand. But now that it's off, I have a knitting machine, and the draw of the knitting machine to do the stockinette sections is too strong for a mortal like me. So I think I'm just going to knitting machine the body stockinette sections and then finish it off that way, which would mean that I probably have like 4 or 5 hours left working on this. And it's going to be fun to have. So I'm going to go see a friend of mine I haven't booked the trip yet still. I'm going to see a friend of mine probably in March at this point, and I made a sweater for her out of this same yarn. So I'm working with the leftovers. So how fun would it be to roll up to see my friend in Colorado wearing a sweater that would match one of hers that I made for her? So that's the plan with this. I'm enjoying it as a pattern. I've heard varying reports about how good the ranunculus pattern is. A lot of people say that it's overrated. A lot of people say that it's correctly hyped. I think I fall in the latter camp. I think it's popular for a reason. It's very fun to work the yoke section, and some of the stitches, I assumed I knew what the stitches were when I was looking at the pattern without having bought it, but having gone through the pattern, some of the stitches were new to me. I wasn't expecting to do the kinds of stitches that were in this. I thought I knew what it was, but it turns out I was wrong. And it was interesting to find out what the stitches actually were. Okay, so, oh, shoot, and the last thing that I'm working on. So the Ranunculus sweater had been like my work project, the thing that I would discreetly knit on in meetings because it was simple. And so with that off the knitting needles to be blocked and tried on, I started something else. Again, another idea that I talked about before was just doing an imitation Sophie with some yarn that I had left over. So here's my leftover yarn. Here's my leftover dahlia from that cardigan that I made. And then here's the imitation Sophie scarf that I've started with it. And also enjoyable. Another pattern that's probably accurately hyped. And I'm calling it an imitation Sophie because I did not buy the Sophie scarf pattern. I I see what the Sophie scarf is and I know what it is, so I'm just making it. So I think I'm already aware that like my sequence of increases is different than hers. I'm doing one increase every 6 rows as opposed to one increase every 8 rows, which is what I've heard it is, but I prefer this one, cotton. I'm working with cotton, which is going to stretch out more than her recommended yarn. Okay, so last thing is that I've got one more idea to talk about for a next project. So yeah, so I have this yarn. I've got 5 skeins of it. Probably not enough for a sweater, but enough for a vest. So I'd like to have a nice little V-neck vest. I actually don't have any knitted scarves. I actually don't have any knitted V-necks. So I'd be making myself a V-neck vest with this. And that's about it. All right, this is fun.